You'll be? Or whoever's the best at this. At the bottom?
All right, Yulby, you want to get started? And I know that we don't have the other members here, but they're actually at a big economic development presentation right now over at NASA. But we do want to get started and get this meeting going. So with that, Yulby, if you can roll through the agenda for us, what's on tap for today, and then when the rest of the council members get here, we'll just approve the minutes.
So just for the record, Councilmember Moreno is the only council member present. So today's agenda for Economic Development and Special Development Projects Committee meeting for Tuesday, February 28, 2023. Here is the agenda. So number one is roll call. Item number two is approval of the minutes from January 31st, 2023. Item number three, the administration to present updates and rules to the responsible bidders ordinance. Item number four, presentation from the American Society for Federal, County, and Municipal Employees regarding the administration's lack of engagement in the collective bargaining process. Item number five, discussion of motions and presentations concerning DBE scorecard reporting program and corresponding public-facing dashboard. Item number six is a report from the CAO's office regarding the site selection process for the New Orleans City Hall. Item number seven is discussion regarding proposed CA between the city and GNO Inc. Item number eight is adjournment. That is the agenda.
All right, thank you so much, Yulby. I'm actually going to take item number 5 first, which is discussion of motion and presentations concerning DBE scorecard reporting program and corresponding public-facing dashboard. So if the folks from the collaborative want to come on up, like your presentation's up. Katie, if you can help make sure get it going. Item number 5, Don.
Hi.
This is just a clicker and should go right and left. Pretty self-explanatory.
Thank you.
All right, well, before you all get started, just a little bit of background on why we're here today. Quite some time ago, you all came to me with a whole set of proposals on how to really enhance the DBE program here in New Orleans. And one of the things that we talked about is additional transparency around the DBE program and how we could really monitor department by department as to what was happening with DBE spending. So therefore, we looked at other cities and you all brought New York to our attention that has a particular scorecard or report card, either way you want to call it, as to how each department is doing. And then that information is posted so that the public can see it as well, along that there are additional reports as well to their governing authority. So we wanted to do the same. And that's what this motion now begins the process of doing, of setting up this report card or scorecard for all the different departments within city government. And I just want to say thank you all so much for bringing this to us, for really working with my team on building this whole program that we're now going to move forward with. And with that, I'll turn it over to you about why you think that this is so important and why you think that this will really improve the overall DBE program here in New Orleans. Thank you for being with us, and introduce yourselves as well.
Okay, sure. Absolutely. Well, thank you first. I am Deborah Washington Gould, the president and CEO of Deborah Gould and Associate Inc., a founding member of the collaborative. And I'm joined today by our committee within the collaborative report card committee. We will have presenters today. Mr. Bill Lewis, and Ernest is also one of the founding, Ernest Stolberg. And I'll give them an opportunity to introduce themselves. Ernest is going to assist us. So would you like to share?
Sure. Again, thank you for inviting us today, and thank you for being so proactive on these really important issues. Just briefly, my name is Ernest Stolberg. I'm one of the founding members of the collaborative. We felt like this was really important. We looked at best practices of what other cities was doing. We had a system where we really didn't know the DBE results until the end of the year when the budget time comes around. And it's kind of too late to find out that departments were underperforming with regard to DBE participation. So we thought this made good sense. We didn't want to reinvent the wheel. Many other cities are doing the same thing. So we brought it to the city of New Orleans, and we hope to see this happen. Thank you.
And with that being said, I would like to just take a moment. On behalf of the collaborative, we wish to say thank you to the City Council, New Orleans Council at Large Division 1, Helena Moreno, including the entire district councilmen for your tireless efforts, your time, your dedication, and commitment. And yes, the collaborative was very privileged to have an opportunity to see the draft of the motion. And again, thank my team for their support today. It just makes sense. And so we appreciate the proposal motion. The collaborative is excited, and we believe this is going to help the business community in the city of New Orleans. With that being said, we have the first slide up, the New Orleans DBE report card, measuring the effectiveness of the city's DBE program. So I'm going to present first on the who and the why, followed by Mr. Bill Lewis, who's going to talk about the what, and then I will return and close it out with the how and the when. So the who is the collaborative is a group of minority business owners who believe that access to business opportunity is vital to the growing, stable, and sustainable minority business class in New Orleans. A business class that in itself is vital to the stability and sustainability of the local economy at large. The purpose of the collaborative DBE report card committee is to help the city of New Orleans create an annual report to measure the city's DBE utilization and assign a letter grade to each of the 33 cities department based on compliance with the city's DBE goals and policy. It is our intention that the New Orleans DBE report card contains actionable information designed to help the city administration and the city council make timely decisions on where and how to strengthen its DBE program. So that's the who. So here's the why. In April 2015, the City Council passed ordinance number 30,497, which called for each city department, board, and commission to report on DBE contracting as part of the annual budget process. In January 2021, it was updated to specify a 35% DBE goal for each entity rather than an overall 35% goal for the city. This reporting has never been fully materialized, making it impossible for the city administration, the council, or the public to wholly assess the impact of the city's DBE program. Transparency here, y'all, and accountability are vital in creating a DBE program that is both efficient and impactful. We feel that this is what an annual New Orleans DBE report card will provide. I will pause for a moment and yield to Mr. Lewis to say some more about the why.
Because the report had not materialized as per the ordinance, the collaborative research for best practices among cities for a report and agreed on the New York City Agency report card on minority and women-owned businesses and enterprises. So we were impressed with this report card from New York, and we are using it as a format for our suggestion to be used in the New Orleans report card. The inspiration for the New Orleans DB report card and what's in the New York program, it's released annually. The New York program is released annually by the New York City Controller. It grades 200+ city departments on actual spending with MBEs within the fiscal year. It provides a letter grade to the city and each department for annual MWBE utilization. It provides analysis of contracts, types, and sizes. We also look into how best to introduce and integrate this program with the city of New Orleans. And we discussed making the reporting process more efficient. Current legislation requires each department to report their DBE utilization to the city council. After years in which a majority of the departments did not fulfill this requirement, we question whether department self-reporting is the most efficient and effective way for the council to gather DBE utilization. And for this reason, we support Council Member Moreno's position to follow the New York City model and simplify the reporting process by requiring the Chief Administration Office, Office of Supplier Diversity, and Office of Performance and Accountability to develop the annual report as opposed to each department self-reporting. And working in conjunction with the CAO will allow the OSD and OPA access to all the necessary data on annual spending with DBEs, in addition to the OSD's own data on contracts with prime contractors whose DBE utilization should be also measured. We strongly support the creation of the Office of Performance and Accountability, a public dashboard based on the New Orleans DBE report card data. As to what information that we believe should be in the report card, the DBE report card requirements, we feel, should one, every city department create a DBE utilization plan and is compliant with the city DBE goals and guidelines for which they will receive a grade. Two, that every prime contractor create a DBE utilization plan and is compliant with the DBE goals and guidelines for which they will receive a grade. In DBEs, also DBEs that were paid by the city and DBEs that were paid by the prime contractors. It should be noted that while entities will receive letter grades for their DBE utilization, further analytics such as percentages can provide even greater details in why the grades were awarded. Now, Ms. Gould.
Thank you, Bill. So as I conclude this presentation, Bill just discussed the what. I'm going to close out with the how and when. Leadership matters. What we would like to see the city council do to further this initiative: one, approve Council Member Moreno's motion to create a New Orleans DBE report card based on NYC model. Two, revise ordinance number 30,497 to reflect the transference in responsibility for DBE reporting to this council from all, when I say all city departments individually to the CAO, OSD, and OPA collectively. Codify the specifics of what each annual report must contain, set due dates for a final report in relation to the budgeting process, set penalties for non-compliance. 3, require a preliminary report card to be released in the fall of 2023 to inform 2024 budgeting process. And 4, budget for an annual report cards to be available to the council and to the public. Examples, updated software and or staffing. And lastly, require that the collection of data on race, ethnicity, and other minority metrics in cities contracting in accordance with federal disparity law and national precedents. In conclusion, this is a celebration, y'all. A celebration of growth and success. The collaborative insistence on an annual New Orleans report card is meant to help you and the public to determine effectiveness of the city's DBE program each year. Our hope is that the New Orleans DBE report card will ultimately be a celebration of program's growth and success. The Collaborative Report Card Committee, we look forward to working with y'all, with the creation of this new initiative. Thank you all for the privilege and value of your time this morning. We are the Collaborative. I am Deborah Gould, followed by Mr. Bill Lewis and Mr. Ernest Stallbar. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gould, for leading the presentation. So just a few things that I wanted to mention. You know, thinking about the value of all this, I even think about how valuable this is going to be for the CAO himself, you know, to
Yes.
see, you know, what departments potentially need improvement, which ones are being, are really the models that other departments could potentially follow. So I think that this is long overdue and I'm excited about this. Let me just walk through the motion so everyone understands the requirements in this particular motion. So this will require the DBE scorecard to be transmitted to the city council by October 1st of each year so that we can be informed for the budget process, which, as you all know, happens around that time and it adopted in November. This report must also be available on the city's website so that the public also has a good understanding as to what's happening with each department and compliance to ensure that our reporting system is also substantially like the one in New York City. The motion talks about different data points and methodology that need to be included in the reporting. And so that talks about the requirements are actual spending on DBE firms. There has to be obviously a letter grade requirement, trends for compliance by department and over time, percentage of DBE spending on emergency contracts, number of certified minority and women-owned business enterprises versus share of annual city spending, key recommendations to encourage or spur compliance. Those same departments would also be required to create and update a public-facing dashboard with key information found in the report and delineated in this motion. And just so everyone is clear, this motion will go for final approval on the March 9th full city council meeting. And so that'll be the next step. So we're moving quickly to get this done. I do have public comment on this. Let me go ahead and take Mr. Edward Parker. You'd like to come up, Mr. Parker? And then Mr. Ben will be next. And then Ms. Geneva. Hey, Ms. Geneva.
Yes, good morning.
Morning.
And happy to be here. Yes, Deborah, it is a celebration. Finally, we're getting something done in contracting for DBEs, especially Black DBEs in this city. I'm a member of the New Orleans United Front. We're a group that just got started, and we're very concerned with economics in this city. And after finding out about this resolution, I'm to give a resolution of support. At a meeting of the New Orleans United Front held on February 23rd, 2023, the Board of Directors weighed the facts and circumstances surrounding the City of New Orleans Disadvantaged Business Enterprise Program and decided to support Councilperson at Large Elena Moreno's legislation calling for a grading system for all city departments on the DBE program and its effectiveness on disadvantaged business. And this dovetails into the disparity study that the city has made maybe about 2-3 years ago. So there's a disparity study that will also give more information on why this particular ordinance should pass. It also, we also ask that these contracts be broken up into smaller packages so that our small and DBE businesses will be able to have a more level playing field. And the set-asides, that's another thing. If there can be a program of set-asides, this will help our local DBEs become even more a part of this economic pot of gold that is New Orleans. Because New Orleans is only poor when it comes to our Black DBEs. Everyone else can come from all over the place and make all kinds of money until it becomes a part of our Black DBEs. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Parker. On that last point that you made, I want you to meet with the folks from the collaborative on the set aside. They're working on some legislation in Baton Rouge. And then my chief of staff is also going to come down and give you his card because I want to learn more about United Front as well, your new group, okay? Mr. Ben, come on up. You're next and then followed by Ms. Coleman.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
My name is Eugene Ben. I own a design build business in the city. I'm an architect by profession. What I want to say here is not going to take a lot of your time. So I've outlined it here, and it toes or shoehorns on what my partner from the collaborative has just touched upon. Number one, we need an Office of Accountability and Checks and Balance that has the power to invoke law for practice and policy to prevail. Compliance with those laws and policies should be a priority, safeguarded to ensure the people's trust. Social science work cannot be pushed aside for the financial well-being of the city. Both hold equal weight and equal importance. People of New Orleans must come first. Businesses cannot exist without a tax base from the citizens. Then the Keen Independent Study, which I was a part of, showed that the business community has forgotten the minority communities of New Orleans. New Orleans houses more than 60% minority population, yet the minority population received approximately 4% of all projects and a dismal 1.29 of all dollars spent. While white males and white females received a lopsided 92% of projects and 97% of all dollars spent. The business community pays an unrealistic amount of money to people who do not live within the tax base of New Orleans. This causes a greater tax burden on people living in New Orleans who are not benefiting from the commercial construction projects. And I'm one of them. In finality, I just want to say this. And every time I have to say this to people who are citizens of this country like I am, who believe in the process of what America is, it disappoints me, but I'll say it. Someone at some time in this country where we on this day as before I got here said the same things I'm saying today. In finality, the goal of America is freedom. Abused and scorned though we may be, our destiny is tied up with America's destiny. Before the Pilgrims landed at Plymouth, we were here. Before the pen of Jefferson etched the majestic words of the Declaration of Independence across the pages of history, we were here. Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And last is Ms. Geneva Coleman. Good morning, Ms. Geneva.
Good morning. This is very brief, just to say that I want to thank you on behalf of every one of our collaborative members, those who have passed on, Lonnie Hewitt and Mr. Creasy and a wonderful, wonderful man that Miss Deborah Gould had the privilege to be with for many years, who fought the good fight toward this effort. And I want to thank your staff. And I didn't leave out Andrew. Sadie, thank you for everything. We appreciate the accessibility because without it, we don't communicate well. And we've been trying to communicate with members of previous times, some who have been extremely supportive. But we feel as though this is one exceptional milestone. And we are so grateful to you for actually following through with what you said you were going to do. Sometimes a rarity in certain sectors. Want to look forward to working with the Office of Supply Diversity as well as all other agencies, boards, and commissions. And we do indeed have information from Mr. Parker regarding the set-aside effort that we are going to be speaking with you about very, very soon. And we do have it in draft form from state legislative branch for your review and comment. And we'll go forward with that. Thank you so much for everything and great job, Miss Deborah, Mr. Bill. Thank you, Ernest.
Again, thank you so much.
Thank you.
This is a major milestone, a significant giant leap for the collaborative. And then I'll ask you listen and you gave us a seat at the table, just like let the public who's present here know this is the collaborative contact information on the final slide. So again, to Sadie, to Andrew, and especially you, to the Honorable Helena Moreno, thank you.
Thank you.
Well, look, I mean, bottom line, this was all the collaborative. You all came up with the different initiatives. You all did the research. You all really did it all. We in my office, we were just the facilitators of trying to get these programs and policies across. And we do still have a lot of work to do. This was just one of your proposals. And so we'll keep chipping away at it, keep working together. I think we make a good team. Thank you all.
Thank you very
And
much.
so just so you know, March 9th is when it'll go to the full council, as I mentioned. Okay, thank you all.
Thank you.
All right, let's see. I'm gonna take next item number 3, which is the responsible bidder ordinance.
Righty. Am I doing?
And just so everyone understands on the responsible bidder ordinance, we actually passed this ordinance back when we had the previous council. And responsible bidder ordinance, or we just kind of call it the RBO. It's really important because it ensures that contractors are treating their employees fairly and that labor issues are represented when we're talking about spending millions of public dollars. But the issue that we've had is that even though we passed the ordinance, the rules for the ordinance have not been developed yet. So because of that, we wanted to bring Julian Meyer. Nice to see you, Mr. Meyer. He's the Chief Procurement Officer for the City of New Orleans. Hey, Chip, how are you? Along with the folks who helped us put together the responsible bidder ordinance, who are at the table as well. Chip and Erica really helped lead this along. And we can hey, how are you? Good to see you. And so let's just figure out where we are, why there's been delays, and what we can do to move this quickly along. I think, Mr. Julian, you're going to begin with the presentation. Do they have a presentation?
Yes, I'm sorry. Oops.
Erica does not. Okay, so
I do
just
not.
Julian has a presentation. We'll start with your presentation and then we'll hear from everybody. But first, everyone, please introduce yourselves. So Julian, introduce yourself, Erica, and go on down.
Sure. Good morning, Councilmember Moreno. My name is Julien Maguire. I'm the Chief Procurement Officer for the city and the head of the Bureau of Purchasing.
Good morning, Councilmember Moreno. I am Erica Zucker. I'm the Director of Policy and Advocacy at the Workplace Justice Project, a section of the law clinic at Loyola, at Loyola Law School. And I have also been working with the labor contingent on this.
Morning, I'm Stephen Paznuski. I'm the chairman of the marketing and recruiting division of the building and trades.
And good morning, Madam Chair. Chip Fleetwood, representing 55 unions in the metro area of the Greater New Orleans AFL-CIO.
Great, thank you. Go ahead, Julian.
Thank you. So I wanted to give the council a couple of updates, obviously, on the rules and regulation and the questionnaire itself. So the rules and regulation were drafted back in the fall of October of last year with the questionnaire to be submitted and review with the representative of the labor groups who have been part of that ongoing review of the documents, as well as construction group. The AGC has been made aware of those rules and regulation about a couple of weeks ago, starting to get their input on reviewing the first draft of rules and regulation. Those rules and regulation touch on many topics in terms of what type of contracts they apply to, what is the process to implement the review of the questionnaire that is the central document of the rules and regulation. And there's the many topics that have been discussed and review and still under review with our group. But there's one obviously that needs a little bit more attention, which has been brought up many times, about the exemption waiver, which is the sections of the rules and regulation where the city has the ability to make a good faith determination as to why this rules and regulation will not apply to. And I completely and fully understand the concern about this caveat within the rules and regulation, and which needs a little bit more attention on how to spell it out and present it to make sure that all parties, everybody who is impacted or not, have an opportunity to review what the city is exempting from those rules and regulation, give their input in order to accomplish the opportunity to see whether they can continue or not. In terms of promulgating the rules and regulation, I know that before I present to the council a resolution to approve them, I need to have a public hearing in order to get comments. I would like to achieve that public hearing during the month of March, primarily before the end of March, because I'm looking at April 6th is the council regular meeting to submit a resolution for approval. Because I need, obviously, to set myself deadlines to get moving to implement that ordinance that's been not implemented yet, unfortunately. And so I think that I need to get that moving. And we've had some ongoing conversation about the draft. There's still some more work to do, but I think we can accomplish that in the next couple of weeks. I would say, as I said, the next critical piece of this rules of regulation are the questionnaire. Questionnaire is a document that would be asked for prospective contractors, vendors, respondents to fill out and submit their proposal for review by the city. I received some feedback already from the labor groups and just getting some feedback from the construction group about the questionnaires. I need a little bit more feedback, additional feedback on those, but they're close to be done, I would say, in a sense that I've not gotten really major pushback on how to be organized in the questionnaire. However, I do expect some additional comments from the construction group. We're just getting to see those questionnaire and those rules and regulation. But we're also looking at, and that's the last point of my presentation, about an online submission in order to give the ability for prospective respondent contractor to submit online instead of having a form to fill out. But there'll still be a form as well with a package. We understand that not everybody has access to computer or be able to submit it online, so there'll be a paper submission. But I'm working with an innovation team for the city to develop that online solution. We'll get some rough ideas sometime next week and how that's going to work in terms of submitting and also publishing this information online. And it's my presentation.
All right, thank you, Julian. So, but bottom line, just so that I'm clear, when it comes to the rules, you're looking to have everything ready to go for the April 6th council meeting.
Yes, ma'am.
Guys, any questions from this side, Erica?
Well, I'm really glad to hear that there's a deadline now, because one of the comments that I was gonna make is that there hasn't really been a sense of urgency. That, I sent draft questionnaire and suggestions for regulations the day after this ordinance passed in October of 2021. And while I'm happy to hear that the city, the administration is having conversations with construction groups, and I assume that means contractors, because the gentleman sitting to my right are construction union folks, as are many of the other people in this room. That there's been this unwillingness. We have said from the jump that we would like to get everyone in the room. I have no problem with sitting across from the Associated General Contractors and hearing what their concerns are and figuring out how we can meet those concerns together. Construction unions deal with that all the time to make sure that the working conditions on jobs meet the conditions for everyone else. So our concern is that rather than having proposals and negotiations and efforts to understand the opposition, if there's an opposition, just to try to see what'll work, there's just silence. And there's generally been a feeling of reluctance from the administration to policies that require accountability. I think this is going to be a theme in what you're hearing today. That I'm happy to hear that there's now a goal of March and April. I'm always happy to see a deadline and see that we can work to that, and that there's movement on trying to move things online, because that's been one of our other concerns. And I understand that we need to have an analog. We need to have a way for people who don't have that online capability to be able to participate in this process, especially in what we just heard about DBEs. We want to bring more contractors into the fold. But I'd really like to see that happen, because this is all about accountability. And I just like to remind everyone here, and the importance of this as public policy is that in the last year and a half since this passed, we have had all kinds of, to use a legal term, shenanigans around the sanitation contracts in the city and concerns about who's getting them. And if this responsible bidder ordinance had been in place at the time, all of those folks would have had to fill out this paperwork. I'd also just like to reiterate that this ordinance, except for the questionnaire and a process for determining contractor responsibility and taking review and action if a contractor is deemed at any time in the pre-bid or performance process deemed to be non-responsible, this ordinance does not require any contractor to do anything that they are not already obligated to do under law. It's just a question of transparency and accountability in public contracting. And just one last thing, and then I'll turn it over, is that beyond this ordinance and its implementation, as you all know, there's current and impending federal funding, specifically the Infrastructure and Jobs Act and the Inflation Reduction Act, which have preferences or requirements in some cases for funding that consider or require processes that ensure equity, including cities being model employers. And this responsible bidder ordinance and measures about that oversee contractor accountability are assets that will benefit not only the city's workers and the residents of the city, but will enhance the city's position with respect to those federal funds. Thank you.
So yeah, we're really going to reiterate a lot of what Erica said. This timeline has just taken entirely too long. There's been multiple construction projects in the city that we have found where workers have been misclassified. They've been working on public projects. I mean, we started this back in January of 2020. Between then and now, we have physically met with individuals working on public projects that are being misclassified. These contractors shouldn't be on these jobs, yet they're still allowed to perform. They're still allowed to do this work, still allowed to get money from the city. because we've been sitting on our hands the entire time. And then another key point, like Erica said, for all this IRAP monies, we're behind the 8 ball right now. If we don't get in front of it, if we don't get in front of this problem, if we don't get RCOs, we don't get this thing passed, the city's just going to lose out. It's going to be a lot harder for us to get this funding and get this money without these things in place.
And I'm not going to beat a dead horse. Obviously, I've been here many times. We talked about the issues in construction. I mean, the whole point of this ordinance is, and I want everybody to remember, is 3 people got killed on a project, right? 3 people are never going to come back because of contractors that don't do the right thing. Construction is the wild, wild west. It's not unique to New Orleans, it's everywhere. But as I would love to see this city act. I know, Julian, you've been working, and I really appreciate your hard work. It has taken too long. The first time we came in front of this council was actually January of 2020. Start having these discussions. Here we are in 2023. Again, countless jobs have been done. I could tell you right now, we had, and I'm not going to name the contractor, but there was 5 jobs that the Department of Labor hit. It's an article. And as far as the union that I represent, the International Union of Painters and Allied Trades, we found 304 painters that were being misclassified. It was $275,000 that he hit them back with because they wasn't paying overtime. So my point is this, and I bring that up simply because I get asked that all the time. Well, what's that have to do with a building collapse? When contractors cheat their workers, they'll cheat on everything. They'll cheat absolutely on materials that are called bid specs, anything to save a buck, and that's what we're trying to do. So I am happy that we have a timeline, but I feel like we need to be more involved in this. I would love to sit down with the contractors. This is what I do for a living. This is what we all do for a living. This is not just about the union, right, or union contractors, or union workers. We have partnerships with our contractors. This is what we do. One thing and I commend you on the work with the DBE programs. I can tell you right now, I have a DBE signatory contractor that's signatory with my union. And being that the cheating that goes on in construction, particularly with worker misclassification, he's having a hard time competing. And he's DBE from the city. So we got to fix that. He should have opportunities like anybody else. So again, I just want to be, I would like to be more involved, let us be more involved. And also, again, I would love to have the other stakeholders in the room so we could work this out and figure it out and figure, we're not trying to hurt anybody. We're just trying to get it right. We have one chance at doing this. Again, now we're on 3 years. So you think after 3 years, we should definitely get it right. So that's all I got to say, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Chip. Julian?
No, yeah, I would just first off specify when I say construction group, I talked about the AGC. I mentioned to them the meeting, the opportunity to meet with the labor groups. I mentioned to them that this hearing this morning, I was in a meeting with them before that to talk about this ordinance. So I definitely looked for them to participate in that review process and comment process, as I mentioned to them about the promulgation requires public hearing. And so I'm looking to get their input directly to them and not just through me as it was mentioned to me before.
Yeah, why don't we do this? As we wrap up here, why don't you all get together and come up with some dates and times when you can get everybody in the room together? Whether it's going to be 1 or 2 or 3, however many meetings you need. The public meeting alone isn't going to be what gets this all done. So you're going to need to have everybody in the room together. So, once we wrap up here, you all get together in the back, come up with some dates and times, and let's get those, everybody in the room together meetings set. Okay.
Sounds great to me. Thank you so much.
All right. And then I look forward to seeing you all on April 6th.
Erica, I have a comment.
Yeah, 1 second. On April 6th, when we, go ahead and get the entire rule package adopted, and just make sure to involve them all along the way so that by April 6th, we really are ready. Like, I don't want, Ms. Zucker and her group coming back saying, well, we're just taking a look at these rules and it's 2 days before they're supposed to pass. And, and then it's like, now things are delayed again. So just make sure that every step of the way that you're including them So we don't have any problems, and April 6th is the day that we adopt them. Council President Morel is here. If we can add that to the record, and he has a comment.
Thank you. Apologize for my tardiness. I do want to make one quick comment, Julian, just so everyone's aware. The council recently passed an ordinance that pertains not to construction contracts, but requires council approval of contracts that have an aggregate cost over $1 million. The reason at that time we did not include contracting is because it was seen as it might be overly onerous to approve every construction contract. What I will put out there is that if we find that the administration cannot get this responsible bidding ordinance done correctly, maybe we will revisit that. Because I can tell you that I certainly don't want to have to be in a position as a council that we have to approve every construction contract. But if it takes that for this ordinance to be taken seriously, we can certainly go there.
Okay, we do have public comment. Shannon Waters, followed by Rodney Wallace. You're gonna wave? Okay, Rodney, come on up, and then Andrew O'Brien.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
I just want to reiterate that one of my colleagues said, we don't want to beat a dead horse, but sometimes that's what it takes to get attention.
Yep.
Because when I came in here, my gut kind of sucked because I was listening to the group that was ahead of us, and they said they've been working on something since 2015, updated it in 21, but then they had a patch that said has yet to fully materialize. And I felt like that's where we was, but this is something we could get done. I didn't realize they had deadlines in place, but now that we do, let's try to get it done because it do affect the citizens, not just construction workers in the city.
Thank you, Rodney. Mr. O'Brien, come on up. Hey, Andy.
Good morning, Councilman Moreno and JP. Good to see y'all. Again, I don't want to beat a dead horse. And my comments is not directed at the council, but for the record. Hopefully this gentleman is sincere with the dates. Because I don't mean to be redundant, but we started this process in January of 2020. And tomorrow will be March of 2023, 38 months. That's ridiculous. The Constitution of the United States was was written and ratified in 2 years. This is just, it's going on entirely too long. We do this on behalf of the citizens of the city. And so all we are asking is accountability for the contractors that do the work in the city of New Orleans. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. O'Brien. All right, so we've got a game plan here. Yeah, you all get together in the back and let's set up these meetings, and we'll see you again on early April for rules.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, coming up next, let's take item number 4, presentation from AFSCME regarding the administration's lack of engagement in the collective bargaining process. Folks want to come up. As Mr. Parmal comes up, let me just go through the timeline as to how we are to this point, or how the administration is to the point with AFSCME. I'm going to go back all the way to 2001 when there was a city workers vote to join SEIU Local 100. Now, in 2018, SEIU transferred city workers to AFSCME through a national agreement. And the SEIU chapter here went dormant. So then in 2020, the New Orleans City Workers Organizing Committee formed to begin organizing efforts. And also in 2020, AFSCME began activities to reconstitute the union. In 2021, AFSCME attempted to get the Cantrell administration to sign an MOU recognizing AFSCME as the city workers bargaining agent. In 2022, Mayor Cantrell finally signed that MOU back in June, but the city has not permitted AFSCME on the property to engage with workers. And then apparently the administration has ceased all communications with the union. So in 2022, AFSCME formally recognized AFSCME Council 17 with a charter as council for the New Orleans workers. And now we're here in 2023. AFSCME has advised the Cantrell administration that they continually have been denied access to city property, and the administration has not engaged in contract negotiations. So the reason why we are here today is we're hoping to just get this resolved finally and figure out this path forward. I mean, this constant back and forth has been, really unbelievable. You all have engaged my office. We have tried to communicate with the administration, and it's just been, we seem to have gotten nowhere. So now we are here publicly trying to get everyone together and seeing if we can get this moving. So with all the timeline that I just presented, please give us the very latest update, where we are, and what do you think needs to be done to move us forward?
Sure. Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you
Oh,
for
please
having us.
introduce everybody at the table too. Introduce
Wait.
yourself and everybody at
Yes.
the table.
Yeah, my name is Lloyd Pramol. I am the Executive Director of Council 17 in AFSCME. And to my immediate right is Rick Pettit, who is the Area Regional Director for the South out of the International Union of Washington, DC. And then to my far right is Jamel Otis, who is the assigned organizer out of Council 17 to work in the city of New Orleans with the workers. As I said, my name is Lloyd Pramol again, and I am the Executive Director of Council 17, representing workers in Louisiana and Arkansas. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to meet with you so that our collective voices can be heard. A lot of our members are working today and unfortunately couldn't be here with us. Everyone knows that city workers have been organizing to have a voice, but the call to meet with management has gone unheard and our questions have gone unanswered. AFSCME is answering the call and organizing to fight to get our union contract and to the respect we deserve. The issues that workers are facing are safety, unfair treatment, and respect in the workplace. I know that our union AFSCME will lift up all city workers. We are gaining momentum talking to city workers about our union. And now we need the city of New Orleans to stay committed with AFSCME and bargain for a union contract for all city workers. You have gone through the timeline, so I'm not going to take all of your time to go through the timeline, but the stumbling blocks that we have faced over the past few months at various work sites. And if I could ask you to put up the second document, sir, the second document. Yeah. So we have, prior to us signing the agreement on the timeline that you listed, we have been providing service to the city workers, those that were facing either disciplinary within their workplace, whether it's the library workers, sanitation workers, parks and parkways. We were, representing those workers. And the reason that we were allowed to represent the workers, because as I said, Jamel Otis was assigned to represent those workers coming from the former SEIU. And they were under the impression that she was still working for SEIU. So she was allowed to go in and represent the workers, speak to the library workers and sanitation in the various areas. When the city found out that she was no longer with SEIU, she's working for AFSCME as an organizer, she was told that she cannot come back to represent those workers. So after the agreement was signed in July 16 of last year, it was a document that says we are the sole representatives to represent the city workers. The city is now taking the position that the document is not to represent the workers. The document is just a name change. Well, there's name change in businesses all the time. I run businesses that come from the city of New York, and I have several businesses there. We have changed the name, but we don't stop doing business with the customers. So the name change of the business doesn't mean we stop representing the workers. That was an agreement that was reached between the International Union of SEIU and the AFSCME International Union. So to say that we do not represent the workers, a name change. I reached out to the mayor's office, spoke to the governmental affairs officer, Arthur, and we were in communications. And he agreed that's okay, fine, that the agreement is not just a name change. You have a right to represent the workers. And I indicated to him that the 4 departments within the city of New Orleans have been denying not only Jamel, I brought in another organizer from the International Union who's in the room, Jennifer Garcia, to assist with the workers and provide the services to the workers here. And they're being told when they visit the sites that it's just a name change. You cannot talk to the workers. Now we have had, and I provided a document here in the department, New Orleans Recreation Department, the director there, Larry Barambino, on September 22nd, actually told the workers that AFSCME is not allowed to be there before or even after work. Now, there was a complaint that came out of the mayor's office to my office. I spoke to them directly that said my staff was being disruptive at a work site. And it was not true because they couldn't tell me who the staff was. I have 2 staff that was at that site. One is sitting to my immediate right, and it's a Black female. The other is sitting in the back of the room, a white female. Now, if you're saying one of them were disruptive and you can't tell me which one, I find that to be ridiculous because you should be able to tell me, if you don't know their name, which one of those 2 were being disrespectful or disruptive at the work site. So then on September 12th, we sent an email to Larry Barambino Jr. to notify him of the concerns that we're facing with no response. No one have responded to us since. At the Department of Sanitation, on August 2022, the workers there were not allowed, the organizers were not allowed to be at the work sites. Matt Torrey indicated that the information about us not being able to represent the workers is coming from the 9th floor and the chief administrative officer's direction that we are not allowed to be there. We're not allowed to talk to the workers. And then in October 6th of 2022, we again notified Matt Torrey and Renee Hollins that we were being denied access to talk to the workers. And one particular worker reached out to us, Mr. Johnson, because he was facing a disciplinary with the possibility of losing his job, and he needed to be represented. We were denied that until at some point they allowed Jamel to come in, but told her she couldn't speak on his behalf. That's not what we do. We represent the workers. We speak on their behalf. So there's a list of things that I provided to your office that indicates that parks and parkways, the directors have been told that we should not be there to represent the workers. Then recently, I reached out to the mayor's office, and now they're saying, well, we don't have a contract. Well, that's just not true. When I met with the mayor's office and their attorneys and the author, the governmental affairs officer, they indicated that there was an old contract from SEIU that ended in 2015. We honor that moving forward until we negotiate a contract. So we went out, provided the workers with a bargaining survey so we could get information as to what their needs are to go to the table, because the city is saying we don't have a contract, we need to negotiate a contract. We cannot negotiate a contract without going through the process that AFSCME goes through. We don't negotiate just amongst ourselves. We get information and we negotiate it with the members. So to get that information, we needed to get into the sites or even after work to talk to those workers, gave them the bargaining survey and provide it back to us. All these things are being denied out of the mayor's office. So we need some clarity from the mayor's office. One, the agreement, the MOU that was signed in July 16th, it is not just for a name change. It says, I wrote that. Their attorneys reviewed it and agreed with it. The mayor signed it. And it clearly says that we are the sole representative of those workers. So to deny access based on the fact that it's just a name change is just nonsense. And we are prepared to go to the table to negotiate on the behalf of those workers. Even the EMS workers have organized, signed over 60% of cards, membership cards to be a part of their union. And they are being denied that right to get to the table to negotiate a contract. Imagine how those workers feel working alongside firefighters, police, everyone else have a contract, and they cannot get to the table to negotiate a contract. So I thank you for your time.
Well, I really appreciate you all coming here. Jamel, I had a quick question for you. When you were part of SCIU, what were the means that you were able to contact and speak with different employees regarding membership, et cetera?
We were able to go to the sites 30 minutes before they get off and meet with them before they get off and on their lunch break. That was the process.
Got it. Yeah, so I would think that the same rules would be applicable now. I mean, I think it's clear that these are just really just a bunch of barriers being put in front of you all. These are unnecessary barriers. I don't even understand, how legally this is even being able to happen. I'd like for the council president to join me in a letter that we're going to send to the CAO asking what type of legal basis they have to even be doing any of this. And then based on their response, the council will be prepared to take necessary action, even legislative action if necessary, to get you all to what you need to do and to have the employees have the ability to at least be able to engage with you all. The fact that you are being blocked from even talking to employees is, it's truly like unbelievable. So those are the steps that I'm thinking of right now. But Art Walton, who you all have been talking to, had said he would be coming to this meeting. Is he here? Liz, is he here? He's on his way. What's his ETA look like?
Yeah, I mean, I've had some conversations with them. They were fruitful and it seems as though, blame is being shifted from Arthur's office to the 9th floor. And I'm going to be specific here because I reached out to the 9th floor, and I guess the 9th floor is the chief administrative officer, right? To no avail. I sent several emails. I've spoken to the secretary, said that his chief of staff would call me. No one from his office have reached out to me in over 8 months to even have a discussion with the discrepancy between his office and the directors in the location saying that we are not allowed to talk to the workers because it's on your name change.
As we wait for Mr. Walton, let me go ahead and take public comment. We'll start with Leslie Bean. Like to come up, and then followed by Lee Abbott. Morning.
Morning. Hello, everyone. Thank you for taking the time to open this dialogue with us today. My name is Leslie Bean, and I'm one of the EMS workers who's been working with organizing AFSCME Local 2349 with Lloyd, Rick, Jamel, and Jennifer. I've worked at the city of New Orleans and New Orleans EMS for almost 5 years now, and I'm very proud to serve as a public servant in my hometown. I grew up in Gentilly. I went to Ben Franklin before Katrina, and now I've lived in Mid-City for the past 8 years. I support our union and all city workers moving forward with collective bargaining, and I'd like to encourage each of you to help us support with this effort. My time at New Orleans EMS as a paramedic has been nothing short of incredible, but ultimately also very challenging. We're a very busy EMS service here that handles every 911 call throughout every part of the city. We go to every shooting, every heart attack, every child's asthma attack. We treat patients regardless of the circumstances, most recently throughout Mardi Gras, Hurricane Ida, and the entirety of the COVID-19 pandemic. We're always here for everybody, and now we're asking for your support back in order to achieve our collective bargaining rights. My fellow EMTs and paramedics have come together to form a union in order to improve our working conditions so that we can better serve our patients and our community. This goes beyond EMS as well. Better civil services overall mean better health outcomes and a higher quality of life for all of us. We're asking for fair representation through our union and moving forward with collective bargaining with AFSCME Local 2349. And that will help us. Thank you for your time. I hope we can count on your help in making our goal of a safer, healthy city a reality.
Thank you, Ms. Bean, and thank you for your service. Lee Abbott. Followed by Nick. Oh, forgive me if I mispronounce your last name. It looks like Sokolik. I think I mispronounced it. Sorry. Mr. Abbott, go ahead.
Hi, good morning. Thank you for having this committee meeting and actually finally bringing these questions into light. My name is Lee Abbott. I work for the city in the New Orleans Public Library System at the Ladder Branch Library. I've been working there for 3.5 years. I am the communications coordinator for the New Orleans City Workers Organizing Committee. I'm also a member of AFSCME Local 2349, and I'm here to represent NOCWAC and support the efforts to get the Cantrell administration to negotiate with the union. This has been a long, confusing process. I've been told many times that there's much confusion about this process, and there's good reason because this process has been insane. Since well before 2020, when SEIU 21 LA ceased to operate, and then the gray zone that we were in with no recognized union, NOCWAC organized in order to defend workers' rights and protections when we did not have a recognized CBA or union defending us. And so many of these issues that we are trying to address here and that my comrades and coworkers like Leslie and the EMS workers are things that NOCWAC has been working on since 2020, including safe working conditions, legal support, COVID-19 protections, 15-hour minimum wage for all city workers, parental leave equality, chronic understaffing, the lack of dignity and respect on the job, saving and supporting the city library system from attempts to defund it. All demonstrate the need for a worker's voice at the table and a leveling of the playing field so that people whose labor maintains our city are respected, heard, and seen before we are simply told to accept deteriorating working conditions. Lastly, I just want to say that NOCWAC seeks a solution that would resolve much of the craziness that has ensued since SEIU 21 LA dissolved. We call on the council to pass an ordinance that codifies the union recognition process in the city charter and code. Currently, recognition of the city workers union is entirely at the whim of a mayor, and that may change administration to administration. In this way, there's no process that either holds the admin to a legal process of recognition and negotiation or gives city workers a democratic say in how the union is selected. So a similar process should be added to the city charter that rationalizes union recognition and removes this confusion about the bargaining units and holds the city accountable to negotiating with the union that the workers select. And NOCWAC will gladly provide model legislation to this effect. Thank you
I
very much.
really appreciate that, Mr. Abbott. And I think you're right. I mean, just with everything that's happened, I mean, I think we're likely going to have to end up going the legislative route. So I'm going to get Andrew on my staff to get your card or you already know each other. Okay, great. So that we can figure out that legislative piece. Let's just start working on it because I mean, the way that things have been going, I don't expect this to be resolved fairly quickly. It'd be a miracle if it does. So we might as well just start working on the legislative route.
Wonderful. Thank
Okay,
you.
Thank you. Nick, I am so sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name. It looks like S-O-A-O-L-I-K. Apologize. Daniel Rocos. Nick, come on up. I know I messed it up. Please tell me your last name.
You want to be the first. Hi, my name is Nick Soklik. I am a paramedic for New Orleans
Got it.
EMS.
Nick
I've been
Soklik.
working and serving this community for the last 7 years. To say the least, I'd like to thank you guys for all your guys' support and effort throughout the last few years. I know there's been a lot of work helping to improve our agency, and I want you to know that that is appreciated and recognized. The last few years have been difficult, and I think we can all understand and appreciate that. For New Orleans EMS, it has been very trying, both mentally and physically, especially through the COVID pandemic, hurricanes in the middle of a pandemic, tornadoes, opiate epidemics, shootings, everything that we endure and serve this community day in and day out, we show up. And I'm here today to ask this council to assist us and show up for us. We're trying to unionize, and I would appreciate your guys' support in showing up for us and assisting us with moving forward with this process with unionization.
Thank you. Mr. Walton, why don't you come on up? And then I'll finish with public comment. You want to sit at the table, or you want to sit at the comment podium, wherever you feel more comfortable. Mr. Walton, thank you for being with us. Look, we've been discussing, and it's been pretty well known of just delays on trying to get AFSCME to be able to organize and to be able to contact city employees. What is causing these particular, barriers, and what can we do to eliminate these barriers, get AFSCME in, have them be able to communicate with our city employees and get this thing rolling?
Councilwoman, thank you for having me. I'm not sure what the barrier is. I know that the legal division has announced that following the National Labor Relations Board rules that there shouldn't be contact during work. I don't know whether they have been advised that they can't contact the employees outside of work.
Well, they can tell you right here.
Yes, they have been. If you, I provided a list of the names to you. The last email I just sent you recently, that includes a copy of this charter that was signed by the International Union to give us the sole right to represent the City of New Orleans workers, indicates that. And I indicated to you 4 major departments that I just mentioned is listed there before you, that indicates that those directors have told my staff that we do not recognize those workers, that the MOU, the agreement that was signed between the mayor and myself is only for name change. It's not to represent the workers. We visited parks and parkways and sanitation after hours to give them a survey to get to the table, as you and I talked about, to negotiate a contract, and that's our process. And they were told they cannot be on the premises even after work. It's ridiculous. After work, we are not, listen, we are a member-driven union. AFSCME is a member-driven union. It's about the membership. It's not about us just sitting at this table. And to deny them the right to even talk to workers when they get out of work, it's ridiculous. It's not just, we're not going in to disrupt. We have never been into an agency and disrupt the agency. We know, yes, the National Labor Relations Board and everyone that knows union knows that union business is conducted between the hours of their lunch period and after hours, unless it's authorized during the work days, and that authorization comes from the administration. And we reach out and request, look, since we established representation for SEIU, we have had no problems with any areas, Jefferson Parish, the city of Baton Rouge, to go in and talk to the workers. We have assisted and helped in those areas where there were problems that they were facing. The union came together with the administration and was able to help. Now, the mayor's office is saying that it's not for representation. Would you be able to say that the agreement that was signed is to represent the workers and not a name change?
So, Councilwoman, I did facilitate the signing of that. And it's my position, or the city's position is that the terms of the MOU speak for themselves. I mean, I'm not willing to alter the terms or interpret the terms, but they speak for themselves. The terms within the 4 corners of that document.
Yeah. So I think is the document just a name change, or does it speak about the real terms of representation?
we would have to look at the exact, I would have to look at the exact language of the document again.
Well, you're the one that's talking about the terms of it, so I would assume you know the terms of it.
Councilwoman, if I
Would
could
you like
have
to
a
see the
copy.
document? Oh, definitely.
Well, he's looking for the document. Who sent the directive to the different city departments that AFSCME would not be allowed to talk to or communicate with any employees even during after hours?
I'm not aware that has been sent or that has been said.
So
I have
different,
no firsthand knowledge of that.
got it. So
Uh,
different department heads just on their own just made that determination?
That's my understanding from what he has said. Like I said, I don't have any firsthand knowledge of
Got
any
it.
department head denying the union access after hours.
So check out the terms and let me know what you think.
So within this document, and I'm quoting, hereinafter referred to as SEIU and American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees, AFSCME Council 17, hereby agree to remove SEIU and or local 21 LA as a sole bargaining agent and recognize and substitute AFSCME Council 17 as a sole bargaining agent in the collective bargaining agreement between Orleans Parish and SEIU Local 21 LA.
Yeah, I mean, I'm no lawyer, but that seems pretty crystal clear.
It is crystal clear to me.
So what's the issue then? Why are we having all these problems?
So, and I can't answer that. I guess my question is, and I think the question is, what in particular are they looking for? And what, if any, hurdle is there to meeting with the employees?
Well, they've laid it out. They sent you a letter. Bottom line, they're not being allowed to communicate with any of the employees, even during their lunch break or after hours. They're being told that by the department heads.
So I hear that. I don't quite understand that. If they're looking,
As the head of intergovernmental affairs, I guess then what are you going to do to fix it?
I mean, I'll speak with the directors. We can continue the discussion. I'll find out what the particular hurdle is, but this is the age of communications, emails, texts, phone calls. I can't imagine.
Well, and they sent all of that to you.
Did they send it to the employees? That's my question.
Well, the employees.
Right.
Yes, the employees is aware that we are the representative, and that's the purpose of going to the sites, to talk to the workers, to let them know who AFSCME is, why we're there, and now we represent them. But if we deny that, the only way we could reach these employees is by doing what we call house calls, by going to their homes. And that's not successful. That haven't been successful. Because one, I requested a public, a FOIA from your office, from the mayor's office. I requested a FOIA. It took them months to get me that FOIA, months to get me that. You're aware of that. We talked about that. I requested a FOIA. We finally got the FOIA with the information to put it together. We sent it out to the international, but we were unsuccessful with that. But I reached out to you and we had conversations about the denial that a meeting was supposed to be set up between yourself, the CAO, and I. That never happened, right? That never happened. I reached out to you. I told you the reason for that meeting is because when the staff goes to the site, they're told we're not allowed to be there. Reached out to you about that specifically, and we were supposed to have that meeting because you made it clear to me that there must be some confusion because it should come from his office on the 9th floor. That was the term we would keep getting. It's coming from the 9th floor. So that meeting never happened. So to say that, you know, there's an age of emails and all that. I mean, I don't want to bombard the council with all of this stuff. I have a litany of emails to the mayor's office. I try to meet with the mayor, the only mayor I ever met with in this state, to just a meet and greet to let her know we are the representative. And I don't understand it.
So
That's just the attestation.
so
If you could sign it.
I guess
Thank you. Thank you.
well, and I'm going to be presumptuous from his statements. I guess the issue is, how does the city help facilitate the initial meeting for the union of the employees of the city? And I think that's outside of our responsibility.
Well, look, I'm gonna take Councilmember Morel, but I think it's really easy, Art. If you just send an email to all department heads that, hey, we recognize AFSCME. If they want to talk to any of your employees within any department, go ahead and allow them to do so during lunch breaks and after hours. Dawn, this is a directive coming from the mayor's office.
We could do that.
Okay.
Okay,
thank you.
and the process is we would notify the agency that we would like to have a meeting like we do throughout this entire state. I mean, we don't just represent city, we represent the entire state. All state classified employees, public sector are represented by us. We haven't had a problem doing that. We notify them. If we want to have a meeting, they set it up 2:00 in the afternoon. If they said, okay, come in, they provide a room, we go and we talk to them, we do a presentation. That's what we're looking for.
Right. That has never been expressed. Like, they want the city to facilitate a meeting for the union. I mean,
I don't think that's.
No.
Councilmember Morel.
This is really stupid. I'm just gonna say that off the bat. This is the stupidest thing I've ever heard. They're not asking to be facilitated to meet with the people they represent. They're asking to not be prohibited to meet with the people they represent. They don't need you to introduce them to the people they represent. They have specific hours in which, what is really troubling to me from you, sir, is that you don't have problems in Jefferson Parish as a union meeting with your workers, but Orleans, you have a problem. Is that correct?
Correct. And the city of
Okay,
Baton Rouge.
let's get real basic. I am a lawyer. Does Mr. Walton, the city of New Orleans, recognize that its workers are unionized and deserve union representation?
yes.
Okay. There is tremendously established protocols across the state on how unions are supposed to be able to interact with their workers, correct?
Correct.
You've stated repeatedly, you are supposed to be able to meet with your people you represent during their lunch breaks and after hours, correct?
Correct.
You are being prohibited from doing that, correct?
Correct.
That is a problem. They don't need you to facilitate anything. They need you to tell all of your department heads to follow the dang rules and let the union representatives meet with the people they represent. Sir, when someone has a disciplinary concern, when you're in Jefferson Parish, are you allowed to represent them?
Yes.
Are you allowed to speak on their behalf?
Yes.
But in Orleans, you're not.
Correct.
That's a problem. People pay union dues so that they have representatives to speak for them in hearings. If we aren't allowing that, we are the obstacle as the city of New Orleans. This has got to be the most asinine argument I've ever witnessed in this council chambers. We are supposed to be the blue island of the state in the state of red. Yet everything I'm hearing is that this city is more hostile to the unions than Jefferson Parish is. Do you realize how ridiculous that is? It is sad that it's come to a point that you have to come to a city council meeting to have to reiterate the fact, I've seen the document, you've read the document out loud. It is obvious that SEIU formally represented these individuals. The city recognized that this new group recognized those individuals, and they are entitled to all the rights and privileges that every union employee is entitled to. The semantic games that are being played here are ridiculous. They deserve to be able to interact with their union representatives. They deserve to have union representation at hearings. This is stupid. Get the departments out of the way. I'm saying this way because when we leave here, they may send out an email. It may go out at some point. It'll be written in such a legalese way that it won't have clear indicators. I'm happy to have council staff write you a sample email. These workers are unionized. Here's their unions. They should have access to their representatives at the specified times, and union representatives can be present at disputes. It's that simple. If you want us to write that for you, we can. The fact that we've taken up this much time in this hearing talking about this is ridiculous. We are a union-friendly city, or I thought we were. And it appears from what they're going through. How long have y'all been in this cycle right now?
Well, we signed it in July 2022.
So it's been about almost a year.
Almost a year, yeah.
We've
been in communicating with them prior to that. The agreement, it was a struggle to even get the agreement if it was not for council member's office, right? And that took about a year to even get to the table, because since 2020, and some of the emails that I have here to the mayor, just for a meet and greet, have been met with, to this point, she haven't sat down with me. And as I said, she's the only mayor within this state have not met with me for members to be represented.
And not to get into the rigmarole with the parish president of Jefferson Parish.
Yes, I've met with the superintendent of schools. I've met with the mayor in the city of Baton Rouge. I'm negotiating a contract right now with the city of Baton Rouge for the former workers of SEIU. Same with Jefferson Parish. I'm about the bus drivers, independent bus drivers, all the workers. The superintendent met, and we are about to do that.
When you request these meetings, you had the meetings.
Yes.
And you haven't had a meeting yet.
Here?
With our mayor.
No.
I would love to say you'll have one. I wouldn't hold my breath. But at the end of the day, regardless of whether you meet with the mayor or not, our employees are unionized. They are entitled to all the rights and obligations that any unionized worker has. If we have to continue to create and pass legislation to make people do basic common sense stuff, we'll do that. But that is a tremendous waste of time and resources. I mean, the fact you're here again on this issue tells us that common sense is not ruling the day. What I think we've addressed today is the city, through Mr. Walton, has acknowledged under oath in front of the council that the city recognizes you're unionized. Further, they recognize you're entitled to meet on lunch breaks and after work, and you're entitled to have union representation. That happened during a council meeting in this chamber while Mr. Walton was under oath. It's resolved. If it's not resolved at that point, then it goes to a different place. And that probably won't be a council chamber. It'll probably be right across that roadway in that other building over there, because this is ridiculous. You've got a signed agreement. You are representing the individuals behind you who obviously are very upset. Their representation is being repeatedly interrupted by the city of New Orleans. This is a waste of time. I'm sorry you had to be here. I'm sorry, all of you. We have 2 paramedics who are here today because we can't get this right. So I would hope that now that we've said all this in plain English, that it's resolved.
All right. So, Mr. Walton, are you going to send the email today, or would you like Councilmember Morrell to help draft it?
I will send an email, but I'd like to reiterate, I have no firsthand knowledge of his discussions with directors. I have none.
Not my conflict, but my staff.
Your staff.
Yes.
So I haven't spoken with the director who has told me, well, we haven't allowed them in.
Well, the good news is, as Councilmember Morrell said, it's clear now that they can meet with individuals during lunch breaks and after work. And you will make sure that everyone understands that via email.
I will.
Wonderful. Great. Thank you. All right, Daniel Rocos, come on up. Followed by Erica Zucker. Good morning.
Hello, good morning. My name is Daniel Rocus, and I'm a member of AFSCME Local 2349. I'm 36 years old. I own a home in the Upper Ninth Ward. I've worked for New Orleans EMS for a little over a year. I've been an EMT for almost a decade. I stand with the union and for my colleagues right now, and I would like to say to Council Members Morel and Moreno, I feel very validated right now with what just went on. I know myself and many of my colleagues have been feeling like we've been taking crazy pills for the past year. It is very nice to have that feeling validated and have it on record that this is asinine. I was hoping to address my district representative today, but I'm hopeful that all of the council members will be able to hear this statement. In an interview last year, Councilman Green stated that the biggest issue facing his district is the biggest issue that's facing the entire city of New Orleans, and it's an issue of escalating levels of violent crime. He went on to say and explain that it's a very complex issue that needs to be addressed, but that he thinks that the city council has got to work with the mayor to identify some things that we can do to address it. Myself and my colleagues agree with this. We're on the same team here. For every violent crime that's committed in all districts in the city of New Orleans, an ambulance is dispatched. We at New Orleans EMS care for this community 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We're an integral part of the complex solution to the complex problems that face this beautiful and wholly unique city. We live here too. We want nothing more than to see the city of New Orleans thrive. We're asking today that you support our collective bargaining rights. We're asking you to help us help the districts that we serve, and we need you in our corner so that we can effectively be in yours. I'd like to thank you again for all your time and consideration. And I hope that you will support our union rights and hope that you support the people of New Orleans. Thank you.
Thank you. Erica Zucker, followed by Britton Forsyth. Erica, I think Erica had to leave. Britton? And then Chip Fleetwood.
Hey, I'm Britton Forsyth. I'm the legislative coordinator for Step Up Louisiana. I had sort of a list of things, but it feels like a lot has been worked out. I just want to say Step Up is in full support of the City Workers Union, and we hope that the administration communicates clearly with us.
Thank you. Chip?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Chip Fleetwood, representing the 55 unions in the Metro New Orleans area, the Greater New Orleans AFL-CIO. I did have a lot to say, but Council Member Morel took care of a lot of that, so we really appreciate that. But with that being said, I just wanted to be known on the record that we stand with the AFL-CIO, stand with our brothers and sisters with AFSCME. So hopefully we could get this worked out. I did call our fearless leader, which we all know, Tiger Hammond, and I knew he would know this question. And I asked him, I said, Tiger, because he shows his age, right? So he's been around a long time. And I said, Tiger, when did we start organizing the city workers? So he went all the way back to Mayor Mark Mario, okay? Going back, I was in high school back then, right? So again, Tiger showing his age. But with that being said, we had 3 administrations since then. We had no issues with when it came to collective bargaining. So I don't know, I don't see what the issue is now, and I agree with you 100%, Council Member Morel. With that being said, thank you for what you do. Helena, thank you for what you do as well. So that's all I got to say. Thank you.
Right. Thank you, Chip. All right. Any public comment online? We do? How much do you have?
We have 36 comments.
You have 36
online.
Why don't you read for 5 minutes and put the rest on the record, just because I still have more on the agenda today. Thank you.
And all of these comments are in support.
The first comment comes from Amanda Falls. As an organization, the city government is either for your people or against your people, for unions or against them. The way you demonstrate your support is by allowing union organizers to freely access and post up with staff so city employees can get the information and help they deserve. If you as city officials have ever expressed support, had meetings, or just casual fun with members of or tweeted about the AFL-CIO, IATSE, or IAFF, etc., you need to do the same with AFSCME. The next comment comes from Brendan Chase. They are in support. As an Orleans Parish resident and EMT for the past 4 years, I support the efforts of AFSCME to unionize and stand in solidarity with my coworkers in this effort to get a meeting to move forward with the collective bargaining process. Unionizing will allow us to provide better services to the people and visitors of New Orleans. The next comment comes from Joseph A. Colon. They are in support. As one of the co-chairs of the New Orleans City Workers Organizing Committee and a former employee of the city of New Orleans, I am thankful to the council for calling this meeting and treating the concerns of city workers so seriously. As the entity that ensured that AFSCME arrived on the scene through our advocacy over the past few years, we share in AFSCME's concerns at the administration's lack of engagement with these parties. We also want to ensure that workers are at the table of these negotiations, so we are not left out of the conversation. We have demonstrated our capacity to work with any and all parties to center the city workers that make this city run, and to give them the benefits, resources, and dignity we've worked so hard to earn. Thank you. The next comment comes from Patrick Kimmerly. My name is Patrick Kimmerly, and I'm a social worker and a New Orleans resident. City workers provide essential services for our community, and they deserve an opportunity to unionize and create a more democratic workplace. Increased union participation will lead to better working conditions and better outcomes for our city. If Mayor Cantrell cares about the people who work for the city and the services they provide, then she needs to stop blocking union organizers from meeting with city workers. The next comment comes from Maria Singer. City workers in New Orleans deserve a union. Mayor Cantrell signed an MOU stating AFSCME has the right to represent city workers. Why isn't the mayor sticking to her word? The next comment comes from Thomas Grehan. I support the efforts of AFSCME to unionize and stand in solidarity with my fellow workers in this effort to get a meeting to move forward with the collective bargaining process. Unionizing will allow us to provide better services to the people and visitors of New Orleans. The next comment comes from Emily Stead. I'm a city worker, writing to urge City Council to pursue an ordinance recognizing our rights to unionize, separate from the current method of being recognized by a mayoral administration. Our right to organize and collectively bargain needs to be written into the city charter as something that no single administration or person in a position of power has a right to block or delay. We have an example in the last few years, but especially since 2018, of how inefficient and unjust the current procedure for recognition is. An organized city workforce will help us restore a middle or working class in New Orleans. Support those who serve the public. The next comment comes from Chris Das. Today, I write in support of the efforts of AFSCME to unionize and stand in solidarity with my fellow city workers in this effort to get a meeting to move forward with the collective bargaining process. Unionizing will allow departments such as NOLA EMS to provide better services to the people and visitors of New Orleans. Next comment comes from Patrick Dario. City workers deserve the right to organize with the union of their choosing. Fixing our city starts with supporting the people who make our city actually function. The essential workers who make New Orleans run have every right to come together and fight for better pay, better quality of life, and better benefits. Their job security is our city's safety. Allow AFSCME to talk to city workers. New Orleans city workers, I stand with you. The next comment comes from Rebecca Cavalier. I am writing to urge the mayor's office to negotiate in good faith with AFSCME and allow organizers into workplaces. Workers have a right to unionize. Using tactics to block unionizing is against the best interest of our city. And that's time.
All right, thank you so much, Yulby. The rest of the online comments are going to be put on the record, and the way that you find those is you go back to our agenda today online and you'll see a section there that says public comments, and you can read all the public comments. And as you mentioned, all the comments were in support. I appreciate the presentation, appreciate all of this getting worked out, and we will follow up. And I think it's important to also follow up with the legislative piece too, just so we don't have this happen again.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, that brings us to item number 6, report from the CAO's office regarding the site selection process for New Orleans City Hall. I also want to mention that we do have Councilmember Green with us.
Make sure we don't. Make sure we don't lose that. So we keep it with the documents.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, good morning, everyone. Good morning. Good to see you. Nice to see you. I don't know who's going to be leading this presentation. Whoever is, please introduce yourself and who you have with you.
Great. Good morning, Madam Vice President, Councilmember Green, Gilbert Montano, CAO, City of New Orleans, Vincent Smith, Director of Capital Projects, and Cindy Connick, CEO of the NOBC. What typically I think will be the best format for the presentation will be a brief introduction and then really pass it over to the experts that have been involved in this. One of the things I want to highlight most specifically as we undergo this presentation is that purely what we are trying to do currently is due diligence, reflective analysis on potential opportunities for a future city hall. It's imperative, as every employee here and often visitor sees and realizes, every floor has some level of issues, often tens of thousands of dollars of work that needs to be undergone. There's been displacement issues relative to us having to move offices and the like. And so the future of this city hall is not bright, frankly. A move or a relocation or a build out is certainly imminent at the right time. And what the team has been undergoing over the last several months or beyond is due diligence and evaluation from existing sites to non-existing sites, meaning a full out ground up restoration, build out. So with that, Madam Vice President, I will turn it over to either Vince or Cindy to run through the presentation and then entertain any questions or thoughts you all may have on the subject. Thank you.
Thank you, Gilbert. Good morning. Once again, my name is Vince Smith, Director of Capital Projects. Cindy was introduced. Joining us at the table is Ellen Wagaspak. Ellen is with Capital Projects, and she is our project manager managing this effort. Moving into the presentation, in April 2019, Woodward Design was commissioned by the city to provide the city with a programming study to assist us as we move forward with developing plans and planning for the construction of a new city hall and a renovation of an existing building. The final report was submitted in November 2019. So we commend Woodward for the work that they did on this study. The picture that's on this slide just represents the locations of city employees at this point. Currently, we are working out of the existing city hall, the Amico building across the street, and we've got some functions in the old VA hospital. Going to the next slide, excuse me. The purpose of the programming document is to create a guide, a principal document that we can use as we are moving forward to examine various sites and locations. This document helps us to understand what our square foot requirements are, what our requirements would be for maximizing not only space for storage, but the co-location of various departments so that we can have a city hall that, functions most efficiently and, allows us to provide the optimum services to the public. Going to the next slide. The data gathering methodology that was employed by Woodward included multiple tasks and engagements. It was a very comprehensive approach, and it included engaging city staff at all levels and included an analysis of the use of our current city space, they engaged city employees through visioning workshops, focus groups, questionnaires, one-on-one interviews. They did employee surveys, and they actually visited various departments as they operated on a daily basis to look at how they were currently operating. So it was a very comprehensive and exhaustive process. Out of those engagements, goals were established that created quality of life benchmarks to assist us as we move forward in not only selecting a site, but as we move forward with the design of a new city hall. These goals and strategies would provide benchmarks that we could use to mark our progress as we move forward. We would also use the latest technology as they prepared this programming document. They came in, they used Matterport technology, which is a 3D imaging technology, and they came in and created a 3D, for lack of a better word, 3D mapping of every floor and every space in City Hall. That information can be utilized in the future to actually create floor plans, and it also helped them as they came up with their solutions and the development of the program document. Woodward's report came back with programmatic recommendations, and they report forward. And if you look at the various recommendations, they are promoting more open spaces, more communal spaces, more efficient workspaces, and recommendations to utilize more of today's technology so that we can improve our operations as well. In summary, Woodward came up, they actually did a 3-year projection on the growth of City Hall from a staffing standpoint. So they came up with, recommendations on the size of what the City Hall should look like in terms of size. They gave us ideas and thoughts on how we can consolidate and co-locate various departments that work together so that we can improve communications and efficiencies of operations as we cross departmental, responsibilities and obligations as we engage the public. Once again, they've given us a document that we can use that will help us to, once again, make the right selection on a site and develop a city hall design that will be innovative, futuristic, and help us to better serve the public. The next slide is just a clip out of the program document, and I think we sent it to be transmitted to you guys. So if you don't have it yet, we are going to get you guys copies of the study so you can look at it in more detail. But this is just a snapshot of information in the programming study that as Woodward interviewed the various departments, looked at their operations, and applied, innovative best practices and innovative technologies they came up with recommendations on, square footage obligations for the various departments. In terms of what we've done as far as site considerations, we've discussed several locations. The existing city hall, we talked about possibly retrofitting that. The biggest challenge there is if we retrofit this building, how are we going to maintain operations? That would be a tremendous challenge. We looked at the 1515 Poydras Street building, which is up for sale, I believe. 650 Poydras Street, Gallagher Hall. We actually looked at that as from a standpoint of possibly co-locating, go to Gallagher Hall, maybe looking at putting the mayor in Gallagher Hall and co-locating, which is across from 650 Poydras actually. So we looked at that in that context to possibly reduce square foot requirements. We've been looking at the old VA hospital as well in terms of maybe having more back of house operations. And in doing that, having a reduction in square foot requirements on a new building. We've looked at 1615 Poydras, and Duncan Plaza has been discussed as well.
Madam Vice President, maybe I could just punctuate the intention of all this. We understand the legislative tools that are in place regarding a future city hall put in place by the council. What our due diligence and our evaluation currently being presented now is making sure when we get to that level of engagement, we have a product. One, we know the basis of what our needs are and the assessment of our needs. But most importantly, what are our viable options due to the due diligence that the team is currently undergoing? I'm not sure if Cindy or Ellen had more to add to Vince's presentation. If not, we would stand open for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Montano. Thank you, Vince. Appreciate it. I guess my question would be, as we're taking a look at sites, what seems, I guess, the most feasible? Is it to try to retrofit and cram us into an already existing property? Or is kind of the better option, if we're looking at, let me go back to that slide. If we're looking at roughly needing, based on projections, roughly 378,000 square feet, and for a head count of 1,300 roughly employees, I mean, what is like the best option here?
Madam President, members of the committee, I think that's what we're trying to determine now. I think all options are frankly on the table. There's a duality that we have to look at. One, as I mentioned in the premise of the conversation, was this building is falling apart on any given day, any floor. There's tens of thousands of dollars of work being put into it that is often looking into a black hole. So there is an urgency, but there's also a long-term strategy that we have to evaluate. So ideally, if we could have a brand new construction project viable within a time frame that is suitable for this building completely eroding, that would be, I think everyone would agree to that. But there is also a time urgency. Is one faster than the other? And what is the cost analysis and benefit of the other? Is there a significant amount of vacant buildings right now in downtown area? And the answer is yes. So I think for us to be comprehensive in that due diligence, we have to look at both and then ultimately decide with the council, the community, and all those vested stakeholders, what is our best option.
Yeah, and as we look at options, how far are we down this process? Like as far as doing cost analysis for every one of the sites that are at least in this presentation? Has that been done? Whether we're going to build brand new on Duncan Plaza, or whether we're going to rehab our entire existing city hall, or whether we're going to try to get jammed in one of these other buildings. Like, have we done all that yet?
Some preliminary costing, not exhaustive. But, we have costed out some of these models, and, just in terms of costs, we're looking at anywhere from 150 million up to 200+ million. So, there's a wide range in terms of costs. In terms of schedule, you've got to consider, land acquisitions, property purchases, which takes time as well. Obviously, if you're buying an existing building, the project delivery should be shorter than a new building. But, we're
Madam Vice President, I just add on that list and in my limited briefings of them, each one of those properties comes with their own level of complexities,
Right.
whether it is we don't have enough room for a city a council chambers, to we don't own the land quite yet and there's a land swap deal, to the Fed's own portions of where we want to locate for a gallery. So each one of those properties outside of the feasibility, meaning cost and square footage, has another layer of complexity, typically of ownership or viability.
How much are you all exploring potential federal monies that could be utilized to build a new city hall based on whether you're, building a green and resilient building, as far as, this administration, this presidential administration has really worked hard on trying to get this type of resiliency dollars down to the local level?
I think we would be at a loss if we weren't fully exploring all of those options as a significant foundation for potential cost. I'm not aware currently of those ongoing efforts. I would imagine that lies often with our resilience office, or perhaps someone on the table knows more in depth. But we certainly, as we embark on the process, would never want to leave money on the table if the federal government was willing to provide some level of compensation for a specific type of building structure.
Any questions? Councilmember Green.
When you look at the existing city hall, is any consideration being given to temporarily relocating all of city hall, demolishing this building and rebuilding? Is that one of the options?
Yes, sir.
What would that cost? Other than the inconvenience of being in other places, but I know that there's vacant space, there's space at universities and all that can handle the because I hear us talk about not owning the land and whether or not we're going to have sufficient space for council chambers and things like that. Obviously, one option is to build exactly what you want, not have to acquire land and put up with the inconvenience for a while of having off-site location.
Yeah. Well, once again, as I mentioned earlier, as we've been looking at the various options, the numbers have been coming in around from 150 million up to 200 plus million. One of the challenges we would face in renovating this existing building, once again, is maintaining operations. In that regard, we have had conversations about possibly, using the old VA building as a temporary or as a swing space if we did that. But of course, if we did that, we would have to fund renovations to the old VA building. We are currently actually launching out on a study of the old VA building, a use study, so that, we can understand what the highest and best use of that building might be, not only from a governmental standpoint, but from a commercial standpoint as well. So, as with everything else there, it's a Rubik's Cube that, we're looking at various options, opportunities, challenges, and, quite frankly, we're still in the preliminary stages of those conversations.
So one of the options, however, still on the table is the potential to relocate the operations at City Hall for a while and potentially, instead of renovating this building, potentially demolishing it and rebuilding.
Well, we haven't talked about renovating locations outside of a permanent solution. And if I'm hearing you right.
No, I'm just saying is one of the options on the table to demolish this building and to rebuild at this site.
This site or an adjacent site? Yes, sir.
That's all. Just one of the options are potentially Duncan Plaza, right?
Yes.
I'm just asking that because I know that we've been talking for a long time, and I say we because it's just part of the city, about the difficulties that would be involved with renovating this building.
Yes.
Because of all the obsolescence and all the age-related problems and things like that. So I didn't hear you mention it, and you've mentioned it that that's an option potentially, since we don't have to get into a land swap or anything like that, potentially using this building that we have. I mean, this space, this location that we have now to have the state-of-the-art facility that might meet all of the technology and space needs, including if we had to go up higher.
Yes.
That's all.
Last year, there was legislation in Baton Rouge dealing with the land swap, dealing with the Duncan Plaza piece. Are we going to refile that legislation? Are we going to move forward with that land swap just anyway in preparation?
Hi, NOBC was charged with going to the state to see if we can talk about the land swap. You know, if you recall, the city's tried this on multiple
Yes.
occasions over the last 10 to 15 years. So we thought regardless of whether or not it was a site for City Hall, it would be a good acquisition
I
because
agree.
we already own a third or more of the site and there's parking associated with it. So we have had some discussions with the state. We have not come to any terms with them. So it's a process, right? And just to address the point on the infrastructure money, you know, NOBC got looped in to this conversation to talk about sources and uses and possible ways of funding. And so as part of that, our due diligence, we did talk to former Mayor Landrieu's staff about what would be available. And while there's none of that money available for capital per se, there is money probably available on a 30,000 foot level for infrastructure
Right.
associated with it, under the ground or sewer, water, anything that would have to be brought into any facility that was done. So we are trying to help determine sources and uses for the eventual agreed upon site.
And back on the land swap piece, I do believe it certainly would be advantageous for the city to do the land swap, and this, you know, based on the potential change and what may happen with the administration, the governor's administration, this may be our final shot. So I think, you know, whatever we can do to try to figure out this land swap, I think is really important. Just so we can be prepared for whatever may come in the future. So let's talk about timeline, Mr. Montano. When do you plan on having kind of a timeline on making, on trying to figure out like what is the best route? Because you and I both know, everybody who works in this building knows that this building is really just to the point where it's becoming in really just deplorable condition. I mean, you walk just back here to the back of the council chamber for can't even count how many times our ceiling is once again caving in. There seems to be some internal plumbing problem. And so we've got, you know, a huge garbage can back here where water is pouring down. I mean, this is just becoming a place where people are just like so appalled at their working conditions, and it's just not good for morale. It's not good for productivity. I mean, we need enhancements. We need a new city hall. So what is the timeline?
Madam Vice President, I think urgency is definitely the timeline, as you mentioned. Not just this floor, but every floor has these same tens of thousands of dollars of problems that aren't going to go away. They're only going to get worse. And hence that was the dichotomy that we were running into. Would it be faster and more effective to look at an existing structure already in place, as opposed to a ground up restoration or ground up build out, I should say, and evaluating the timelines between that. And I think that's really what we are trying to undertake now. To give you an exact timeline, I'd probably want to work with those who are on the ground more closely to give us a kind of a better perspective on where we are, and at least with a collective recommendation list that we could then go through the normal council process with to determine that, because this problem is not going to go away. It's certainly only going to get worse, especially coming onto the next hurricane season and the like. Going through Ida and all the pieces associated with that, as everyone recalls, was about one of the worst building experiences we ever faced, at least from my professional time here. And I don't want to relive that again. So certainly urgency is a vital marker on how we're moving forward.
Well, in the meantime, let's work on the land swap, and let's come back and revisit this here at this committee and the Economic Development Committee in the next few months, in the next quarter. Does that work?
Yes, ma'am.
Any further questions?
No.
Good. All
I
right.
know
Any
that the-
public comment, Yulby?
I know the state has
One public comment.
$150 million, so the state can find the money for us. Let's negotiate.
Yulby?
So this comment comes from Patrick Dario. He's in opposition. The comment reads, stop trying to move City Hall so you can sell it to a hotel developer. In all likelihood, it'll end up in the hands of Joe Yeager, who will sit on it for years as it crumbles. Fix the building we call City Hall. Stop trying to downsize so you can fire more workers. Do the right thing and stop being greedy. Gilbert, you should quit your job. You are a disgrace to the city. That completes the comment.
Good. Gracious.
That's a first.
All right, thank you, Gilby. I appreciate y'all for coming in today. Thank you for the presentation.
Look, I guess we have to read all public comments. Thank you for your work that you do.
Yes, thank you for.
That
all
was
of
my
it.
first one of those.
Yeah, no,
I want to, that's my first.
Wow.
The way you read it, you'll be.
I was surprised.
I wonder if Yubi added that.
Wow.
All right, so that'll bring us to our final item on the agenda, which is going to be discussion concerning proposed CEA with the city and Greater New Orleans. Thank you. Michael Heck, President and CEO of GNO Inc.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Let me make sure we have.
Never fail to press.
There we go.
It just has a couple of slides.
Yep. There we go.
That was, so that was like 80 tweets on Jimmy Kimmel. How are you?
Being here.
Yeah. Sure. All right, we just keep track of the present. Yeah.
All right, Mr. Heck, good morning. I think it's afternoon, just a little bit into the afternoon. Good morning to you. You can begin whenever you're ready and please introduce who you have with.
Great. Thank you, council member. And I have Courtney Stuckworth Wong is with me today as well from the city of New Orleans. First of all, I want to say to you and to council member Green and your team, thank you for all your work together. The council's really been particularly excellent recently on public safety, really, unified and supportive. And these are hard yards that we're making, but I feel like we're together moving in the right direction. So I wanted to say on the record, we appreciate what y'all do every day. The issue in front of us today, I think, should be a fairly simple one that I'm pleased about. Greater New Orleans Inc. is a public-private organization. We are generally funded about 65% by the private sector, about 25% from the public sector, including the parishes that we represent, the 10 parishes. In the past, originally when GNO Inc. was founded in 2004, we were funded by the city for the amount of $200,000 a year. In our first year, that went down to $125,000. Then there was no funding during Katrina, not surprisingly, and then in the years following that, under Mayor Landry, the previous administration, funding recommenced at $100,000 level that it's been consistent at since that. By comparison, Jefferson Parish contributes $90,000 a year. Those funds, however, have typically come through NOLA BA or been routed through NOLA BA. That was, I guess, the mechanism that was determined, which worked okay, but we've always wanted to be directly funded by the council and the city for reasons of direct accountability and because it's more expeditious for everyone. And so the CEA that's in front of us here today would do that going forward with a set of deliverables around business development, around marketing, around policy work, around bringing in groups to the city, would require us to report back to the council and the city on a quarterly basis. And so I think it's a much more straightforward approach. The only item that I brought to show today, and actually there's the first page of it, which I can leave up there right now, is I think it's critically important in the nonprofit world, in all world, particularly the nonprofit world, to talk about ROI. Too often we talk about funding, but not on the return on that funding. And so we try to keep a running record of what ROI would be is for our partners. This is an overview, and in the 11 pages that follow, there's detail going back 5 years of the ROI of the $100,000 a year to the city of New Orleans. I can take you just through the front page. these are wins that GNO Inc. has been materially involved in, meaning that we weren't necessarily the only player. We're working with partners, whether it's NOLA BA or the council or the private sector or others, but we were materially involved in land and policy and workforce, in marketing. Looking at this, since 2017, we can qualify it in two ways: quantitative returns and qualitative returns. The quantitative returns are interesting. Since 2017, if you look at the projects which are listed, most recent one being Excella, coming in at 150 jobs, $140,000 average salary, have contributed over 3,700 direct jobs. It says they're over $150 million in payroll. Actually, council members, I'd want to amend that down slightly, because DXC, we're now counting at 300 jobs, not the original 2,000. So that would take that number down to 129 million, but still a big number. And that results in currently over $5.6 million of annual tax revenues to the city. The way that we calculate that is that we worked with the state many years ago, and we said, for every dollar of payroll, how much does it return to the treasury? Because that's the return on the public dollar. At the state level, that number is 7 pennies. So every dollar of payroll for a company that we bring in returns 7 cents to the treasury of Louisiana. At the local level, the average number, and of course it's not exact, but it's indicative, is 4.3 cents. And so if you use that 4.3 cents in every dollar of payroll, then the $129 million of payroll, which is the adjusted number, brings in about $5.6 million to the treasury every year in New Orleans. And to be very specific about that, the Excella project that we just announced, which is 150 jobs at an average salary of $140,000 a pop, about a $21 million salary, will result in over $900,000 of tax revenue in terms of sales tax, property tax, associated tax flows to the city every year. So there's actually a real quantifiable return. So looking at that, for the $100,000 every year that's invested in GNO Inc., the ROI to the city is about 5,600%. So it's not bad. And then, of course, there are the kind of more qualitative returns, the NOLA Coalition, which we work with you on public safety and investment in our youth. The GNO Wind Alliance, which we know we're working very closely with your office on, Councilmember Moreno, on establishing us as the hub for offshore wind, getting international flights at the airport. The BA flight's doing very well now. We're now working on Air France, flood insurance, and now actually homeowners insurance is going to be the really big issue for us going forward, because I have a colleague, for example, the sale of her house just fell through because the buyer was told, this is over on Canal Boulevard, they were going to have to spend $20,000 a year for their PNC. And this is happening all over the city. It's a crisis that's comparable to the flood insurance crisis that we saw back in 2012. We have workforce programs with all of our universities. We have a focus on Black wealth creation through our programs like our HBCU Startup Initiative. And then, of course, continuous marketing of New Orleans to the world in partnership with others like New Orleans and Company. And so I'd like to think that the city is getting a solid return on the funding, and we'd love to establish direct accountability to the city and council going forward. Thank you.
And I think what needs to be, clear here is that you all had been receiving the funding through NOLA BA as the pass through.
Correct.
And so the real difference here is that now we are laying or providing a layer of oversight, additional accountability by you getting it directly from the city and having to do the quarterly reports to the council as well.
Exactly. That's right. So there's no new dollars, but previously it was coming from the city to NOLA BA to us. Now it would come directly from the council and the city to us. And so we could report back with direct accountability.
Got it. Councilmember Green, any questions?
Just remember, that means you're coming to us every quarter now.
I have to say, council member, after today's meeting, I think I'm looking forward to that. That was it was quite a meeting, even for a city council. No, I have to tell you that whether it's to the city or to the council, we like having the direct accountability because, one, it keeps us on our toes as a nonprofit, but two, it allows us to hear from you what you're hearing from your constituents. It creates a closer partnership, and ultimately that's going to make both of us better. So we like the accountability.
And of course, I was joking. I welcome you to come to the council.
Thank you.
To have more information. I do appreciate initiatives such as the working with the young people, the organizations that I've seen. And also, we all recognize and we use the language a lot, but creating Black wealth in our city is so important.
The only, if we, the two things that we need to do going forward are education and creating a stronger middle class, a diverse middle class. If we do those two things, we'll be fine. If we don't, then
Right.
we won't be.
And it's okay to use the word wealth, and that the African-American community needs to see the creation of more wealth, whether it be in home ownership, whether it be in investing in products such as real estate in the stock market, insurance too. I mean, throughout our city, it's not just a African-American issue, life insurance and other insurances like that. I mean, that's the way you build wealth. If we're going to do that, I encourage you with GNO and others to focus on wealth and recognize the ways that there are to create that wealth in our city, and to kind of not only address the wealth gap, but there's a wealth gap between New Orleans and other cities, and a lot of it has to do with what we've chosen, to invest in as private citizens.
Council member, you're absolutely correct. Just two key points for the record. One is that when we talk about wealth, all we mean is income flows to individuals over time. And the key thing about wealth is not just to the individual, but it's intergenerational wealth. It's what you pass on to your children and grandchildren. That creates stability in a community. There's no question about that whatsoever. And I think the second thing is that when we are going out to create this wealth, we should remember that if you actually look at the numbers, although we talk about affordability all the time, and I think you're hit about it all the time at the council, housing affordability, groceries, gas, and so forth, statistically, New Orleans has more of a wealth problem than an affordability problem. Our affordability is about average, and I would argue for what we get more for our dollar than most places in terms of the quality of life, challenges notwithstanding. But in terms of incomes, average incomes are $10,000 lower in New Orleans than in comparable cities. We need our people to have better jobs and make more money.
Right. And to also focus a little bit more on creating wealth. I mean, honestly, I look at issues such as cash value and wholesale life insurance policies that we have here relative to other cities. And that's lost wealth in addition to home ownership. So, I mean, I know you know that. This is just an opportunity to say, looking forward to working with you and having you come before us every quarter. But use that word wealth a lot more, because we need to have generational wealth created by having assets perform for people later on. And we can all benefit as a city from emphasizing that. So, great. Okay.
Stephen Kennedy, come on up.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I want to start off by stating some simple facts. African Americans' median household income is $30,000 in the city of New Orleans. Hispanic household income is $60,000 in New Orleans. White median income in New Orleans is $83,000 in New Orleans. So yes, there's a huge problem with wealth and income inequality in the city of New Orleans. And so, and I know as a board member of the New Orleans Business Alliance, I'm real familiar with, the pass through, how the funds came from the city to NOLA BA to GNO Inc. And I think, Mike do a good job over there. But one of the things that I will hope that is included in that CEA is that we talk about racial equity, we talk about economic empowerment and economic justice for, communities of color. But when we look at the disparity study, and he talked about for the last 30 years, minorities, that includes women, that includes Hispanics, that includes Asian, that includes Blacks, only get 2% of the gross revenue, 2%. And so and I hear we always talking about government contracting opportunities. Government only spends a finite amount of resources, a very small percentage. And so I will hope that in that CEA that we can include focusing more on bringing the private sector. You all represent the 10 parish region, which is great. And most of your members are private sector individuals and companies who contribute, in order to keep GNO Inc. alive. And so at New Orleans Business Alliance, we're focusing on a procurement council. And so bringing private sector companies, who maybe come to government to ask them for some type of ITEP, some type of tax exemption, some type of pilot, some type of incentive that they want in order to increase their profitability for their companies. But yet they don't do no business with African-American businesses or minority businesses. And so I just hope that that's included in that CEA in those reports, because yeah, we're doing a report card for local government, that we talk about government agencies. But are we going to do a report card on the private sector and how they are not giving minorities and women-owned businesses opportunities? I think that that's what we need to have a real discussion about, because if not, we just really talking to hear ourselves talk. And this is a city that's majority African-American, and this is a problem that's been a long-term generational problem where, once again, minorities, that includes women, that includes Black, that includes Hispanics, that includes every single minority group who are only receiving 2% of the gross revenue over 30 years, probably longer than that, but based on the data that they looked at, that was a 30-year time period. And so if not, if we talk about all the other social ills that we facing in our city with crime, that we facing with blight, that we facing with all these things, we gonna just be spinning our wheels. And I always bring up my sister when she was murdered in 2014. The neighborhood that she lived in had over a 30% poverty level. 30% poverty level. So when people ask me why I'm so passionate about economic development, because I come from poverty. I've been poor my whole entire life mostly. And so that's why I'm passionate about this. And so I just hope that you all take serious consideration when we're talking about empowering and moving our city forward, that there's real economic opportunities. So thank y'all for y'all time.
Thank you, Stephen.
Yeah, if I could just respond to Stephen, because I think you raise a very, the critical point, and I want to talk about some of the progress we're making, and we have a long way to go. But so we ran the numbers last week. We always run them, and we're very proud about in our tech sector that we're doing what we call inclusive innovation, which is that everybody's getting a bite at this apple. The latest numbers show that in the tech and digital media sector, according to it's MC, which is now called, it's a different service, but is that New Orleans is now number 5 in the country for African-American per capita participation in the tech sector. And we were number 5 for women. We slipped to number 12 for women. We have to investigate what that's about. And so when you look at an Excella, which is coming in here with 150 jobs at average salary of 140,000 per job, and that we're still not as good as we should be, but relatively very good for African-American participation, then it shows that we're at least going in the right direction towards addressing what you're talking about.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I think and according to this, that, the city put out a strategic generational wealth plan. Did you? I don't know if y'all had a chance to read it. I did. I'm a reader, so I read every single thing that I get my hands on. And I think it's a great plan. But I think, by the city putting resources into whatever agency that they put in, they should have a strategic plan on how they are helping the city achieve its generational wealth plan. No matter if it's GNO Inc., no matter what agency that they're receiving, taxpayer, our dollars. This is our money. And so hopefully that there is real true consideration given, and that we can really see if we're really moving the needle or not. Those are great. Those companies that you mentioned, technology, I think that's a great sector that we're trying to grow, just as we also are trying to do with the bio industry, the TIF that was passed by this council. All those things are great. However, if Black people from it. And so that's all I wanted to reiterate. So thank y'all once again for y'all time.
Thank you, Mr. Kennedy.
Thanks, Stephen.
Madam
Yep, go
Chair, I'd like to say one thing, and Stephen, you're absolutely right, but I do want to focus on one thing that you focused on earlier, and I focused on this when I was the head of economic development. Yes, there are limits on government, but I want to emphasize to the public, and you've done it there again, the private sector, 8 times the size of government. That's where a lot of the resources are, and if we can tap into that more, and if GNO Inc., NOLA BA and other organizations can focus on getting African-Americans and getting women and minorities involved with that private sector, there are issues that they don't have to confront business owners when they're dealing with a private sector on a private sector level that they have to confront when they deal with government. And I will say this, I want to close with this as the optimist. I'm involved with an industry where I manage property for a lot of African-Americans who happen to be millionaires. And I just want to make it clear that that does happen sometimes in our city. We just need to have a lot more, but they're always involved with private sector entities. And that's what we have to recognize, that that private sector is 8 times or 9 times the size of government with fewer limitations. Keep pushing for us to get involved. And Stephen, as a member of the board of NOLA BA, let's keep pushing the private sector for more inclusion, and also helping people to recognize that government might be a start, but the long-term wealth is created in the private sector.
Amen. Thank you.
All right, well, if any public comment, Julie? Nope, no public comment. So that
Great.
completes the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very
Thank you.
much.
Thank you, council members. Appreciate you. Thank you so much.
And now that I have a quorum, let me move on the approval of the minutes from our last meeting.
So move, Green.
If you could just second
Moreno,
for me,
second.
Councilmember Green, thank you. It's been seconded by Councilmember Green. All in favor? It's 3 yeas, no nays on the minutes. And now a motion to adjourn. I move, seconded by Councilmember Morel. On favor, aye, and we're adjourned.